Japan has resumed its efforts to solve the atomic crisis at the Fukushima nuclear plant following emissions of smoke. Workers at the facility are trying to restore electricity and cool down the troubled reactors. RT's Igor Ogorodnev is following events there.
Engineers have been able to resume their efforts to connect power to all the reactors at the Fukushima nuclear power plant. Yesterday, these efforts had to be stopped after smoke started billowing out of 2 of the reactors. As soon as the power is reconnected, several more steps will have to be taken, but eventually the engineers are hoping that the water cooling systems will be able to be reactivated. Otherwise, the focus has shifted onto the impact of the radiation which has already been released. The authorities are saying that in some of the areas around the plant, the radiation levels are 1,600 times higher than they should be normally. Villagers in nearby settlements have been told not to drink their tap water because it contains possible radioactive elements. Instead, they're being given bottled water. There's also suspicion that some of the marine life around the plant on the coast has been poisoned as well, and that may pose some sort of risk to the fisheries. We've also had scares over the weekend and afterwards that some of the agricultural produce from that area may be contaminated as well. Now, the authorities are saying that the levels are safe, but of course there's still a level of anxiety amongst Japanese people and even people further abroad as to the possible risks of radiation. Of course, there is still the impact of the earthquake and the tsunami which has recently struck Japan. The police are saying that 9,000 people have been confirmed as dead, more than 12,000 as missing. 300,000 or more than that remain homeless. And of course, the number of the confirmed dead is likely to grow over the next few weeks.
At one fishing port in Japan that was destroyed by the tsunami, fishermen have started to clean up the wreckage left behind so they can get back to work. But they're worried about radiation spreading into the sea from the Fukushima nuclear plant.
Much of the fishing port in Takahagi was washed away by huge tsunami waves on March 11th. And now, fishermen who evacuated the area are just getting around to untangling nets and cleaning up the wreckage. But as they try to clean the port so surviving boats can go out to sea again, a new problem is weighing on their minds. Further north up the coast, engineers are battling to contain the disaster at a nuclear power plant damaged by the massive earthquake and tsunami.
As for resuming fishing, radiation is something that is harmful to human beings, so we have to be careful. So when we go fishing again, we have to be careful.
Radiation from the Fukushima Daiichi plant has been found in the vegetables produced in 4 prefectures surrounding the Fukushima plant, in tap water in areas around the plant, and also in the sea. Many boats moored at the Takahagi port in Ibaraki Prefecture have sunk. Many others were thrown onto what is now dry land. Mounds of tangled fishing nets and buoys lie scattered everywhere. It could take months for the port to be ready and boats repaired at Takahagi, and fishermen hope the nuclear crisis will have been contained by then.
My name is Neil Carmen. I'm here to talk about what you are not being told. The chemical that Austin adds to the water is an industrial toxic waste. This is not natural fluoride. Not natural. There's a fundamental difference between natural fluorides in terms of their toxicity and the hexafluorosilicic acid that is added to the water supply. The concern is that it's not just this one chemical, it's actually a mixture, a toxic cocktail. This comes from Lucier's material safety data sheets of what they've identified in several communities around the country. It's not just the fluorine compounds, you also have lead, arsenic, chromium, mercury, selenium, potentially radionuclides because of the ore, the phosphate ore that is mined in Florida. So, to look at the toxicity of this mixture is a very challenging issue. It's not been done. In 1984, a book on clinical toxicology described fluoride as more toxic than lead and almost as toxic as arsenic. Fluoride in different forms is extremely toxic. The EPA was asked in 2000, and I've given you a copy of the letter, what studies it has on this chemical, not natural fluorides, this chemical, hexafluorosilicic acid or hydrofluorosilicic acid. It's a fluorine silicon compound they call silicofluorides. EPA said there's no health studies proving the safety of this chemical. We're not talking about fluorides in general. We're talking about the chemical that Austin adds to the drinking water. The EPA checked with their research laboratory people. They don't have any studies demonstrating the safety of this specific chemical. This chemical comes from the phosphate fertilizer plants in Florida, as Dr. Wong pointed out, but it's an industrial toxic waste. This is a photograph from one of the plants where they're making this byproduct. It includes uranium because uranium and radionuclides are in the phosphate ore that's mined. So a significant question that needs to be asked is, what are the toxic ingredients at low concentrations? When we are talking about chemicals like lead, chromium, hexavalent chromium, it's a carcinogen, a class 1 carcinogen. The only safe level is 0. Arsenic is a class 1 carcinogen. It's the only safe level is 0. You don't want to put this in the water supply. These are the phosphate scrubbing towers at one of these plants in Florida. This is a toxic industrial waste. This is not natural fluoride. In conclusion, we are putting a toxic waste into the drinking water. There's no studies to prove that this chemical is safe and effective, and there's no legitimate governmental interest fulfilled by adding arsenic, lead, hexavalent chromium, which was the subject of the movie Aaron Brockovich, and adding other contaminants to our water. Hexafluorosilicic acid and these other ingredients degrades the drinking water and source.
Hello everyone, welcome to Global Government News. Today is Wednesday, March 23rd, 2011. I'm Darko. Welcome to part 2, everyone. Please visit my website, www.ggnonline.com. That's ggnonline.com. The new poll is, do you support military operations that include the removal of Muammar Gaddafi, instituting a no-fly zone, embargo or sanctions, and or deploying ground troops? Of course, you can have the options of yes, and no, maybe, or not sure. As of right now, 5 people, the majority, 100%, have voted no. They do not support it. And the Arab League doesn't support the attacks. The Muslim community doesn't support the attacks. And there's various countries, including Germany, China, Russia, that don't support the attacks, or the attacks. Yet they're just going forward with it. So it just goes to show you that you do live in a dictatorship, and it's not anything close to a democracy. So we're going to finish up with this economic news. We're going to roll into the most recent news from Japan, and then we'll finish up with, of course, eugenics. Fed to disclose bank crisis borrowing. So look at this. The Federal Reserve will release data on bank borrowing during the financial crisis of 2008. Said after the Supreme Court rejected an appeal by the banking industry aimed at preventing the disclosure. Of course, what are they going to say? They're going to say it has to do, like, the government, when the government wants to basically hide or mask what they're doing, it's usually bad. And they'll usually pull the national security card. Oh, it's in the interest of national security. Basically, the financial industry, they'll do the same thing. I've heard it many times, including Geithner and Bernanke, who represents these people, these entities, and they'll say the same thing. They'll say, we cannot disclose these numbers. I remember when basically back in 2008-9, when congressmen and women were demanding numbers, statistics, the books. Basically, where is all this money going? There was almost $20 trillion that were gone in a short period of time, and they just wanted to know, where did it go? And of course, they couldn't tell them, and they basically go to that. We gotta, it's for financial security and privacy, and stability of the markets, right? So anyways, former Clinton official paid $26 million by Fannie Mae before taxpayer bailout, now on Obama's shortlist to run for the FBI. And it says here, U.S. role in Libya cost hundreds of millions of dollars so far. And it says calculating the U.S. price tag for the no-fly zone in Libya is hardly simple math. So you can go in there and check this out, saying that these Tomahawk missiles are priced at $1 million to $1.5 million apiece. God, dispatch B-2 stealth bombers round trip from Missouri. That's right. Remember, just like back in the 90s, all the way from Missouri to drop 2,000-pound bombs on Libyan sites. So total flying time, 25 hours. Operating cost for 1 hour, at least $10,000. So go in there and you can do the math yourself. Most of the links will be posted, as I said before. If not, it's because I just don't have room in the video's description. Northrop Grumman's $1 billion richer. It says a team led by Northrop Grumman Corporation, part of the military-industrial complex, was awarded a follow-on task order of a total potential value of $1.1 billion of the U.S. General Service Administration, or GSA. Per the order, the team led by Northrop will operate, maintain, and enhance the classified networks for the Department of Homeland Security. My buddy, who was a sheet metal worker, actually was in Northrop Grumman's facilities, highly secure places, and he was just doing duct work, and he said that that place was creepy because they had a lot of security measures. So God only knows what's going on in there, but it's just like Boeing, and it's just like Lockheed Martin. We're going to move on here. To me, honestly, I just think that they're, it's a private company, but they're basically, it's like Google, it's like Evergreen. These are fronts for either the CIA, intelligence agencies, or just the government in themselves. The government, it's weird because it's like I see the government as a corporation, but then I see the corporations as an entity of the government, right? Because they need the government in order to get that status as a corporation and basically have limited liability. So, when I see these corporations, I just see them as a part of government, as part of the government. Apple, Microsoft, Pepsi, Coke, I see them as part of the government. So hopefully you can too. It says here, FBI Center takes on $1 billion ID project. The Clarksburg FBI complex, you like that? The complex is taking part in a $1 billion project that will enable law enforcement agencies to identify criminals and terrorists. Terrorists. Do you think that's guys that are threatened to blow up buildings? No, that's people on the internet talking the truth. By physical characteristics more quickly and accurately, an FBI official said Monday in Charleston. So the F-35, a weapon that costs more than Australia, it says the U.S. will ultimately spend $1 trillion for these fighter planes. Where's the outrage over Washington's culture of waste? Because they don't have any choice in the matter, right? That's what I said. And you go to Washington and you say, hey, we don't want to attack Libya. We're poor over here and we're struggling. What do? Well, you get kettled by horse and then you get thrown in jail and slapped with a $500 fine. That's democracy. Millions lost in Australia aid, foreign aid scam. That's why I said don't donate to Red Cross because, in the Haiti disaster, 80 million of the 250 million went down a black hole. So... And it said 175 cases of fraud are under investigation. So if you're going to donate, look on that Japanese earthquake exclusive video that I posted up there, and it has the link to a legitimate website, a legitimate charitable organization in Japan that does it all the time and supplies food to the poor, and they're doing a special donation for the Japanese earthquake victims. Real risk if radiation contaminates food? Covered that. Then Japan radiation risk reduced by currents and dilution, scientists say. Just trying to calm fears, I guess. Japan radiation release lower than Chernobyl, and we said it was going to be worse than Chernobyl, so I don't know if we're really going to know. Maybe when we're all dead, right, of cancer or whatever, eugenics. Power lines up in progress at Japan nuclear plant, and then we have all reactors reconnected to power, but radiation scare continues. And it almost sounds as if they say it's a radiation scare, as if there's no potential harm, right, or side effects from this, but there is. Japan's premier halts farm shipments. Then we have U.S. restricts import of Japan products. Japan quake victims surpassed 25,000. Japan quake damage put at $310 billion. Japan government admits potassium iodine pills should have been distributed earlier. Germany to abandon nuclear power for good. Government kicks off vaccination scheme to keep country polio free, and says the UN. That's right, they care so much about Somalians. World's largest dairy exporter under scrutiny scrutiny for GMO contamination. And India says Monsanto covertly, illegally conducted GM corn trials without approval. Organic poultry far less prone to salmonella than conventional, study finds, and USDA refuses to enforce organic standards, allow synthetic omega-3s in Horizon organic milk. So if you drink Horizon, check that out. Rickets is back as a new affluence disease. Why? Because people aren't getting enough vitamin D and sun. My own theory is because, well, they're blocking out the sun with all the chemicals. That poor, poor sun, man, I miss it. Every time it comes out, it's only a matter of minutes or hours before it disappears and gets immersed in a cloud of chemicals. This is GGN, and I'm Darko. Thank you.